All right, all right. Welcome to another edition of Grown Folks Business on a beautiful Thursday evening. And football season is back upon us. For all those people who are in love with bread and circuses, the grandest distraction of them all is back. So, yeah, I count myself among those. It's a little bit of dopamine, I guess. It's a little bit of escapism to watch some adult males run around on some grass, trying to hit each other as hard as possible, and to cheer for the team that you like the most. So football is back. Tonight we're going to be talking cost or benefit, choosing the collective over the individual. I foresee this conversation going in a multitude of directions, but I'm so glad to have the people to guide those directions that I do on the tonight's show. And that's Celeste. Thanks for joining us. Lisa, as always, appreciate you. And Bob, thanks for being here. Danya, thanks for what you do. So I know, Bob, you and I have discussed this numerous times, and in the idea of the cost of benefit and thinking about the entirety and the collective above the individual. You think resources? You think, well, why are we so contentious in our society? What is it against just sharing and knowing that the best outcome is possible if everybody can participate meaningfully, or if everybody's taken care of in a meaningful way? So that's kind of where I'm steering tonight's conversation, and I'm really thinking based on some earlier conversations I had today with a good friend of the show as well, Ajane. I was thinking back to one of our favorite professors and something he always mentioned in terms of history. Historians are tasked with contextualization and dealing with evidence and facts. And one thing Dr. Parker mentioned in regards to the slavery that America benefited from for so long, and we say benefited, but what did it really cost us also? And one of his observations that I thought was wonderful, and this is the cost benefit. It cost us something because, as Dr. Parker will say, who did we lose and what did we lose during that process? Who did we keep from becoming someone that would have been a great benefit to us all? Who did we eliminate? Maybe the cure for cancer is already found. Maybe we're on our third or fourth planet exploration. Who did we just get rid of during that process for what we thought was a benefit? And I say we loosely, but that's the kind of the conversation tonight. When you choose the collective over the individual, how much further could we be, and how much more could we gain? So, as always, appreciate you guys for being here. I'll start with the first question, and I'll direct it towards you, Bob, and then we'll make our way to those beautiful ladies on the call. Thank you guys for being here. Glad to have you. Look at don't do that, Lisa. Giving the looks, but glad to have you. So, Bob, what can be gained from considering others? Just flat out that question. In how I've kind of framed our discussion. But what can we gain, or what can be gained from considering others? It's a simple gesture, I think. But what can be gained from it?
Is consideration one of your C's? Yeah. So, it's a bigger question, I think, than it may actually even seem, because how many times do you hear people talking about, oh, I've been so focused on others, I've now got to have some me time. I've been, so now it's like they're at odds with each other. It's like this. I'm either thinking about the group, or I got to think about me, or if I talk about the group too much, now I got to think about me. And it seems to me that there ought to be, and I think there is, a less conscious delineation between the two, where we recognize that both our individual and our collective well-being is best achieved through a community orientation. And yet our culture just doesn't allow for that very well. It doesn't let that sit there in any kind of comfortable space. And I think it's because we do largely have this me orientation. And I think a lot of that comes from sheer insecurity, and a sense from people that they've not gotten the love they deserve, they've not gotten the love that they need, they've not gotten the focus that they need. So they've got to pursue the attention, they've got to pursue the gratification, they've got to pursue these things because they're just not comfortable individually. And that creates this struggle between, okay, so if I'm unhappy, if I'm insecure, if I don't have confidence, I'm told a way to compensate for that is to pour into other people. But then so I do that. But then time out. Now I've earned the time to go back and take care of me. And I don't think it should be that constructed. I think there ought to be a place, and history shows, data shows that the happiest places in history were places where community was valued over self. And so I think that a friend of mine always says the data shows that, and I think that I think that we can look at that. We can look at the data. We can look at the science. And if the science tells us that, I think there's truth in that. And I think that we need to basically really defer to that and learn from that.
Yeah, I think there is something that we can reference, and it can be on the most personable level of when you just say, hey, I know I could go over here and do my thing, and that gives me pleasure or joy or happiness or what have you. But, going and making sure that somebody else is okay. And that could be more than just one person, or doing something that is to the denial of your self. Yeah, I think there's some worth to that. I think there's some value to that. And I think it is something exercisable. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, and I think that, you speak of Dr. Parker and his comments about what we lost. Mm-hmm. And he's exactly right. Layer onto that the humanity that is lost, just the sheer humanity that's lost for the collective, with the atrocities and the normalizing of atrocities and the justification of atrocities and all of that sort of thing. What untold damage is done to the entirety of the culture and the communities and the people in that, and for generations, by the doing of those sorts of things, versus a demonstration of love, care, compassion, and respect.
Yeah. What have we cost ourselves? Something greater than what we actually have. I don't think the benefit was worth the cost. Lisa, coming to you. So, what can be gained from considering others? And yes, you can definitely keep the entire topic in mind while you're responding. So, but thanks, Bob.
Man, this is so complicated because I got back from Idaho, and and a lot of my friends and family, people who
I forgot to say welcome back, Lisa. I really did. I meant to say that. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Thank you. A lot of my friends and family well, not family, my friends were concerned about me, because they know I love my family. I love my children. Team Lisa is just like the air I breathe, right? And my children, they had a very controlling mother. And I've already, been explicit about my controlling nature and being a traumatized person raising children. So my children, they are not as attached to me as I want to be attached to them. So I flew across the country to the Pacific Northwest, 2 time zones, to see my son, his wife, and his baby, my grandbaby. And I did not get a lot of their time. Now, the people who care about me, they were caring about whether that was going to break my heart, whether I was going to be so sad, because when I was in Texas last year, I did cry. But I'm even more healed than I was last year, because I was there, oh my goodness, for 6 days in Idaho. And I saw my son and his family 3 of those 6 days. But I was okay. I was okay, number one, because I had to consider that although I wanted to love all over my son and his wife and his son, they wanted something else. And I had to respect boundaries that they're setting for themselves, because number one, I created this environment. Like, I squeezed Jeremy tight, all of my kids really tight. So now they done popped out and they're like, you can't squeeze me anymore. So number one, I had to respect that. And when I stopped thinking about how I was so hurt about it, oh my God, I want to see my grandbaby. Oh my God, I want to hug my son. When I got out of myself, it helped me feel okay about not seeing them, even though one of my friends was like, man, I'm so mad at them. You done traveled all the way, da 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 da, da. You done spent this, da, da. And I was just cool. And I'm thankful, because I was thinking, yeah, I wanted to see him, but that was my wants, right? But thinking about what their wants was, they deserve to want whatever they want. I traveled over there. So it freed me. It's liberating to consider another person, and it helps even progress the healing. So it was interesting to be in Idaho, and have no other reason to be there. But I'm just happy that I didn't cry at all, and I was cool. And the one thing my son did say, he says, I just don't understand. How is it you can be bonded to Roman? How is it you can love him and you ain't even seen him? You seen him one time, the day he was born. But he can't understand me because he's not me, right? I'm bonded to him. I love him because I choose to, and because I respect all that encompasses. But I'm not trying to, no, I'm not anymore trying to impart all of my desires and things on him and them. And thank you, Felton. Although you were pretty matter of fact at saying that, your kids don't owe you nothing. Um, I took the meat and threw away the bones, right? Because I know I see your face, Celeste, but that is what he said. But no, he spoke from a place of, it was matter of fact, right? But it has, even though it's been 2 years, I've still been taking pieces of the meat, and it's helped me on this healing journey to say they don't. And I want them to choose to accept the love I have to offer, but I have to choose to accept the love they have to offer too. And I know we talking about some other deeper stuff, but for me, I can't get deep into other people's weeds until I deal with the depth of my own. So I'm happy to be amongst a lot more Black people, for one thing, but
Yeah, welcome back. No, that's a wonderful, wonderful attachment to your personal life for that question. Yeah, sometimes it's even what seemingly makes the most sense for a situation, for a relationship, um, for a class you might be teaching, or just a bigger interaction. You got all of these things set the way that this is the way it's gonna go. But sometimes you have to kind of understand that something else is at play, and it's time to make an adjustment. And it might be just to let it go and see what happens from a different angle. And yeah, and not to get in your feelings about it. Not to get all busted and disgusted and throw a tantrum. It's just like, hey, there is value in this exchange, even though it's not the one that I thought I was going to have. So that's a wonderful observation. And yeah, I'm sure you still enjoyed yourself, and the time was that much more precious. So that's beautiful. I appreciate you sharing that. Celeste, what can be gained from considering others?
So one thing, yeah, I understand kids. We don't end up owing our parents anything.
That's a
Trying to.
long story, Celeste. That's a
Oh
longer
no, I'll
story.
say I'm gonna get on you. I'm gonna get on you. I understand that, but Phil, I know you, so I just know how you said that. Lisa, you should have put them paws and them Thundercats clean on them. But I mean, Bob, he said something when he was speaking, and it was our society functioned better when we operated as a community. And I mean, I don't think people recognize this, but a lot of that always happened after tragedy. So America functioned better for a short period of time after World War One, simply because it was a time where Black people and white people had to bond together in society to survive. World War Two,
More
same
so
thing.
World War Two. The World War One was much less, but World War Two absolutely, and
Yeah,
9/11. But you're
I
right.
was going to say 9/11, but also even after the Korean War. After the Korean War, that's when you get those legislative strides for the civil rights movement that kind of take off a little bit more. Small town and like a little bit federally, but not really enforced. And then after, what was it? Um, Vietnam, that's when we get serious jumps because, we get the Civil Rights Act of the Civil Rights Act of 64, and it was enforced. But after Vietnam, the soldiers did not get treated fairly. But again, they didn't get treated fairly, white and Black. I worked with the ALA doing Tar Heel Girls State with them in North Carolina, and they talk about how coming home from Vietnam, they were scared. All of them were looked down upon. It was one Black soldier. He said it was the first time that I seen a white man get stuff thrown at him the same way that they threw stuff at me. And the community bonds when suffering, but there's for me, I have not seen, especially in my lifetime, my short lifetime, I have not seen a time where we bonded together simply because we were bonding. And I feel like that comes from accepting everyone as they are, accepting everyone for who they are. I don't necessarily, it's one of those rules of being cordial. I don't necessarily have to like you, but I can respect you in open space. And I feel like once we get there as a community, that's when we can technically function and have that peace. I'm not saying me as a Black woman, just speaking for myself, I don't accept racism, homophobia, ageism, and sexism, but I respect your right to have it in this country. I might not talk to you, but I can go to the grocery store, everything else, mind my business, keep it pushing. I don't have to speak to you. I just have to respect your existence. And that is how I feel like we function as a community, recognizing that if we're going to say that as an American, you have the right to free speech and all this stuff in the First Amendment, that goes for everybody. I mean, shoot, my con law professor might want to get up there and spank me if I say it, but using the First Amendment, I can say that if you have the right to free speech, the right to do this, the right to be that, the right to do this, that, and the third, and then you want to use the argument of what the founding fathers were doing, that means you got the right to be gay, trans, anything else as long as you ain't bothering nobody. You might not have to, you don't have to like it, but you should just be able to respect it and walk past it on the street because ain't nobody bothering you. And for me, that's what community is: accepting everyone for well, not even say accepting, but respecting everybody's right to be who they are and moving on. And I feel like as long as American society in general is trying to force people to be the mold of what we feel like they should be, or having a superiority complex of this person or that person, shoot, we can get into white supremacy, male supremacy. You can get into the dominance of this, that, and the third, and gender roles. But all of those are molds. If we just allow people to be who they are, as long as they are respectful of others, and as long as a baby, a child, a dog, or another human being, I'm gonna mind my black old business and keep it pushing. And I feel like that's where we have to go as a community, as a society, for us to genuinely have acceptance of one another. And peace. Accepting one another means being okay with the person beside of you, whether you necessarily agree with them or not. If you can stand behind somebody in line at the grocery store with a Trump hat on and a MAGA 2024 shirt and one of them Trump mugshot shot Sanders in the 2016 primary, baby, do that everyday life and keep it pushing. I ain't starting nothing with you, but just do that.
Yeah, I think that consideration is inherent to what our social structure is, but we still don't allow for it the way that we should. And Celeste, a lot of what you're saying, I think, falls under the adult umbrella. There's something that you're supposed to tap into when you become an adult, and some of that is maturity. And with that maturity is an understanding that not everyone is like you, and not everyone's going to have the same value system or adherences to quote normality and things of that nature. So the whole energy that exists for me is adult. Adult is the primary thing. If you're an adult, then you should have the processor that allows for you to do things in our society as you would please, as long as you're not harming others. And of course, if you're not harming kids, you know, one of my main things that I said during my campaign when it was on the topic of LGBTQ or anything regarding has anything to do with sex is adult and consent, period. I mean, if you're an adult and you consent to it, hey, you know, like you said, I'm minding my business at that point.
1 second. I don't know if you've seen the meme yet. I'm sorry. Where it's a gunman walking into a school. The kids are hiding under the desk in the meme, and they say, well, at least it's not a drag queen. There are more important things to focus on than what somebody chooses to do with their consenting adult and their consenting body.
Yeah, we're on the precipice of some things in our society, especially in regards to this gun culture that we have. And we've talked about that on the other show. Yeah, it's a lot of false equivalencies, but that's also in our nature at this point too. A lot of arguments that don't make any sense, and a lot of observations that kind of become conflated when they shouldn't. So yeah, we'll stay away from that tonight and continue on down this track. But a good share there, Celeste. I appreciate you. So Bob, you mentioned something a little earlier that made me jump ahead of my questions. And it was, you know, when you say, like, when people say, oh, I did all of this stuff and it was for everybody else, and now I got to go have some me time, that type of attitude. I agree with, I think, where you're coming from with that. It doesn't have to be that kind of exclusive action. You know, I think we can function in understanding when you may need a reset, and we've talked about that in this space before, or when you might need to get away and recalibrate or recharge. So that's not quite what we're talking about. I think you mean it in the fashion of those that do something and then just have this expectation or this built-in requirement of something has to take place over here that's all about me. So the question that made me jump to was, can you think of a time the choice you made benefited others more than yourself? Me personally speaking, there was a point quite some years ago where I had a conflict with the final day that we were mentoring. We had a mentoring program with the Hayes Taylor YMCA Achievers, and I was volunteering at that time. And the final day of us meeting, and we were gonna, kids were graduating, it was all this other stuff. I had another engagement that I was actually receiving an award via UNCG when I was in my undergrad there, and I wasn't going to make the final day of meeting with the kids, but I just knew I had to get there. So I kind of got through my ceremony as fast as I could, and then I hit the hit the car and made a beeline out there, and I got there right at the end. They were actually leaving, but that's one of those instances where it was just as much for me as it was them, but it was for them because they were missing me that day, but I was missing them. I think it benefited others only in the sense of it was more of the kids, right? I'm just the one individual, so the benefit was for a multitude of people. But man, I have to say I shared in that, but that was a choice that I made. I'm going to get to this final day, and it's not just about me in that moment. So that's kind of what the question is. And Bob, if you want to go further into what you were discussing earlier and take on the question as you speak, but can you think of a time the choice you made benefited others more than yourself?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. My comment was more about this conscious compartmentalizing than about the need to do this or that. I mean, our need to be healthy and maintain our health is self-evident. I mean, we breathe without considering what else is going on around us because we have to. But we don't think about it. We don't go, oh, I need to go breathe now, and I need to stop doing what I'm doing over there, or I need to get away from these people over here so I can go breathe over here. I mean, we do emotionally, but not just physically. We don't compartmentalize it that way. We breathe. And if somebody sticks our head underwater and we can't breathe, we fight like hell to get our head above water without consideration of anything else, not because of anything other than we have to, and we do it. And we're not compartmental. We're not going, oh, well, let me see. Is this a time that I can think about myself and get my head above water so I can breathe again? We don't even think about it. We just do. If somebody's holding our head underwater, we fight like the dickens to get our head above water to breathe. It's what we do. And my point is, it's the unnatural compartmentalization, and I think that comes from how our culture has built us. And when I say it that way, we are a consequence of generations of family building, culture building, experience building. Lisa was talking about it with her own family. Lisa's talking about her children and what she did as a mother. She didn't talk about what her mother and father did to her and what their parents did to her that brought that down to where she was doing what she's doing, and talk about what husband did or didn't do that caused her to further do what she did or didn't do over here and over there. But what she then did say is talking about she's out there. She's gained the self-confidence on her own at this point to go, hey, yeah, I want what I want, but you deserve to want what you want too. And it's not my place to decide what you should want. For me, it's my job to give to you and fill for you what I can fill for you. I want what I want, yes, but there are reasons for that over here. I mean, it's complicated. It's so daggum complicated, and it's complicated from all of these different things. Celeste talking about community and tragedy triggering this and that. And my comment, just to be clear, was about the science that I was talking about wasn't just U.S. history, but global history and deep, hundreds of years history. But I think she's exactly right. And the question is, I would ask if we have people really thinking, as she was talking about, standing in line, would we really have people wearing MAGA and Trump hats to start with? Or would that not even exist? Because I think that sort of thing is reactive. And I think at the end of the day, so much comes down to leadership. And when we have leadership that's fanning the flames of divisiveness and focusing on the outrageousness of differences. And the funny thing is, and I know this is an adult show.
Jumping ahead again, Bob. You gonna take me to a whole different question because of this. Go ahead though. This is good stuff. Good stuff.
So, we know that all of these people that are anti-trans or anti-gay aren't necessarily that in the privacy of their own homes in terms of their own truth. We know that, and we know that so much of what's acted out is just acted out in public for the purpose of power and control and influence and so forth and so forth and so forth. And we've got these leaders that are fanning the flames of these differences rather than talking about standing in line like Celeste is talking about, standing in line and you're not affecting me. Live your life, adult, consent. Don't mess with children. Don't, but adult, consent, live. I don't live in your body. I can't understand that, but I don't live in your body. So how am I supposed to understand that? Let's talk maybe, and maybe you can help me understand that, but we got to talk. And, why do we've got all of these things that separate that could just vanish, should just vanish. I talk with friends of mine who voted, let's say, for Trump. I'll use that specifically as an example. And I say, oh, so that's what you want your son to be? He's the role model for what you want your son to be. He's the guy that you would like your daughters to marry if they want to marry a man. That's what you're choosing. Or do you want your daughters to replicate how he operates in terms of their own behavior with other people, whatever the gender, sex, whatever the dynamics are? Is that what you want? Quite honestly, the answer to that question has to be yes. It never is yes, but it has to be yes. It's the only way voting for Trump makes any sense, if the answer is yes. So that's what we do. So we've got this thing between what we say and what we do. And again, we go back to, I think, insecurities, selfishness, a need to elevate ourselves for some reason that is, why do we so need, look at Facebook, Twitter, media, celebrity.
Yeah,
why do we need, do what?
Being validated plays a role.
Why do we need so much external validation, and why do we just shatter if we lose it?
Yeah, good observations. You may have said all you need to say about the next question, but when I get to you, you can reiterate, because you're the person that's jumping ahead tonight. But I appreciate you. Great comments. Lisa, can you think of a time the choice you made benefited others more than yourself?
Oh, that's a loaded question, because when I am in my feelings, I feel like that all the time, right? So, hey, I only know what I know best. I spent 32 years raising kids, so I'm gonna go back to these kids. I spent a couple of hours at the urgent care today because I've been in a lot of pain and I haven't been able to get it under control. And I had my youngest child with me because even before I went to a couple of meetings to do what I'm trying to do. And she was antsy and ready to go, but I had to get x-ray and some other stuff. And so me being mom, I'm like, gosh, this isn't fair on her. Her 18-year-old self is ready to go. So either take the vehicle and go. So I'm like trying to make her life more convenient, right? And then I was like, wait a minute. I did tell her to call somebody. I changed my mind about her taking the car. And then I was thinking, I was like, gosh, I'm kind of scared. I'm feeling some things I hadn't felt. I'm doing more. People know I'm differently abled, and I'm doing more than I'm used to doing. So my emotions start taking over, because I'm feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm enjoying life right now because I'm doing the work I have purpose to do, and then I'm an empty nester, but then my body is rejecting me living my life, and I was like, but I'm by myself. My daughter is gonna leave. She wants to leave, and she doesn't want to hold my hand. And then I got to think about this company, and then the people who are depending on. Da, 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 da. And then I had to say, okay. So first, I started thinking the 32 years I sacrificed raising these kids, because I didn't have a career. Sometimes I had a job, and something went wrong with them. I quit the job, or all this stuff. But then I had to say, well, wait a minute. Back to Bob's point. These are choices I made. So whereas I thought, so in my self-absorbedness, and it's nothing wrong with considering yourself. In my self-absorbedness, it's like, man, I sacrificed for them. I sat at doctor's offices for them. I took them to school. I drove them here. Da, 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 da. Well, I chose to create them, right? Now, that does not negate the fact that I have human needs, but I can't let my emotions take me somewhere, because I created them little monsters, right? I did not have them fulfill any needs of mine because I didn't think it was their job, right? And I also, so I can go back to all these other choices I made that didn't make them as emotionally attached to me or wanting to be all supportive. Because sometimes I think about some of these drug dealing dudes that honor their moms a whole lot more than mine do sometimes. And no, I'm telling you, I go there sometimes. I'm like, Dad, bless it. My kids don't be shouting me out like that and whatever. But so I say that to say that when I start going down that slope, I stop myself today, right? Because I said, well, I gave them the level of confidence to feel like they had options to fulfill their life, because that's what I wanted for them. So I can't at this point come back and hit them over the head and say, God, I wish I traumatized you more and made you people pleasers, right? Yeah, I still wanted somebody to hold my hand, but I was able to articulate some things to my adult daughter. She's still only 18, so however adult you can be at 18, and say, I just want you to know that because of my trauma, I was used to dealing with things by myself. I've been by myself for this long period of time, but I'm still human. And I start saying how I'm scared. I'm scared that I'm in pain. And so I don't want to take advantage of you and your time. But as your mom, sometimes I just want to have a human with. So I use some words instead of getting all absorbed in those feelings. So to answer your question, even when you think, so to your point, when you think you're doing something that somebody else gains more, you still make the choice and you're having a level of fulfillment, right? So I almost wasn't going to come on this show because I was like, man, I need to get in the bed. I need to put the pillow between my knees and lay on this side and da-da-da. But this show offers me something. I show up for my friends in the squares, but even seeing your faces and sitting in this chair and da-da-da, I'm still getting something. So I don't think I cannot really absorb the fact of giving more to anything or anybody than I get. And I don't know if I've reached I can't have reached the pinnacle of healing because I'd be dead. But it feels good to be able to pause and say, now pass the test today. Check back in with me tomorrow. Okay. Because I'm on some pretty good drugs right now, but check back in with me tomorrow.
Look, you just stay away from that pinnacle for now. I appreciate you sharing as always. That was great. And yeah, I do think it's the type of individual you are that kind of gives you that feedback of it's not just this selfless act. It is something that you can acknowledge as being something that gives you a little bit of fulfillment as well, even if it is prioritizing others to a degree that limits something that you desire. You get something out of it, and I totally agree. with the way that you described and articulated it. And it is important to communicate your feelings and how you don't be petty in the most vulnerable moment that you have. Don't, well, go ahead then. It's okay. Don't worry about it. And you're feeling some type of way. No, go ahead and communicate, what's actually on your heart. And that takes practice. And Lisa, you've done the work. I mean, that's actual moments in the mirror. That's actual reflection of something that took place and how could I have done that better? What outcome did I desire that I probably worked against because I put all of this energy towards the most outrageous aspects as opposed to the more sensible ones. All of that makes a difference, and all of that takes practice, and all of that takes patience with yourself, because you're going to fail more times than you succeed. Go ahead, Lisa.
I will say that I keep looking at Celeste because I'm expecting her to bust out laughing, because last week we spent over an hour on the phone and I was pretty explicit about who I used to be about 30 years ago, and she was like, what? So as I'm this new, more evolved, healthier person, I was waiting on her to laugh like, that don't sound like the Lisa I heard about last week.
That's awesome. I'm glad you guys got to share the time, and it's very important to me to know that these connections are not just here. And I think everybody in this space at this point, I think we all have spoken outside of the squares, have connected at some point or another, whether it was lunch or coffee or whatever else there is. So yeah, I think that's important. These relationships are not limited by the broadband connection. This is great to know that you guys connected as well. So I hold you in high regard. So coming to you next, can you think of a time the choice you made benefited others more than yourself?
Okay. So first, before Lisa even said that, I was gonna say I have great affection for Lisa. That's my girl. Like, after I got off the call, I went and woke up my mama and I was like, Mama, I love this woman. Like, she got a Facebook post about her and everything. Yes, Lisa, that Facebook post about women who are confident themselves, that was about you. Lisa knows who I am right now because I'm still 25 years old and growing. Every time I choose not to slam my laptop on the table and let somebody have it because they done said something that they should have kept to themselves, because they made me want to knock their head in between the stove and the refrigerator. Because some people say things and I'm just like, who raised you? I need to talk to your mother. Why were you confident enough in yourself to say such a thing out loud? And the things that people feel are appropriate to say about other people baffles me. And I will go ahead and say that the Trump presidency and campaign in 2016 made it worse. When that man got on stage and mocked disabled people and started making like those offensive gestures about people who are mentally handicapped and disabled, and he was still able to stay in that race, made it so much worse. The things that people probably said in their own homes after a glass of scotch, glass of gin, they now come out and I organize for a living, I do policy, all that stuff. People now feel like it's appropriate to say out loud. And every time I don't slam my laptop down and get ready to put my finger in them face and get them the lecture that they mama did not, because sometimes in my head I definitely be like, I need to get the belt. I need the belt right now because I'm about to spank you. It's about to go down. Like, not even a regular spanking. When you go to a church called New Jerusalem Temple of God in Christ, and they got a bush out front, and you could go get a switch, and grandma tell you go get your own switch, honey, that type of whooping, because it'd be like that. I'm let y'all know who I am. I am an auntie. I am not a mother, but I'm an auntie. Honey, auntie, I don't even whoop you like that. So if auntie say go get a switch, just know you done really messed up. And in front of that small country church, I'm finna tear your tail up. I'm finna tear it clean up, because some people just need that type of whooping in their life. I don't even believe in whooping kids. I don't let my nieces get whoopings. If I'm there when my brother try to whoop my nieces, I go pick them up and rescue them, because you're not finna whoop them while I'm here. So if I say you need a whooping, you need a whooping. And that is, I learned at a young age that I have to hold it in, because you can't let people take you there. But also, I'm not built for prison. As y'all can see, I like to have my hair done. I like to have my nails done consistently. I'm a high maintenance girly. I own that. I am a millennial of this generation. And, we do stuff like that. Black girl magic, black girl joy, black girl luxury. Yeah, all them hashtags of me. That's what I choose to spend my money on.
Yeah,
And
some of that stuff has just been problematic for you guys. It's done more harm than good.
I'm there with you, Felton. But in this, like, I've learned my ability to keep it in is how I protect the people around me and how I protect the world. Because my dad used to always tell me, I always had this penchant growing up. I wanted to defend everybody and make sure everybody was okay. And I wanted to love on everybody. And one, you have to learn that everybody is not deserving of your love. Two, nobody is required to accept your love. But three, you protect yourself and your peace by learning to just walk away. But getting angry sometimes comes with caring too much, which is what all those are symptoms of. And I had to learn to just walk away. When somebody says something terrible in a room about how universal health care helps the poor Black people, and I want to look at them and be like, you do realize that poor white people in America than poor white people do statistically worse. Whenever I'm ready to go there and defend my people, you can't argue with people's feelings. You can't argue what they think. I can hit you with as much cited sources, peer-reviewed research, this, that, and the third from viable sources. Like, I just had to learn to let it go. Like, that's my biggest thing. Now, I don't have no kids. Now, Lisa, talking to Lisa, she made me think about them kids, because I'm like, okay, see, what you not gonna do is have me out here with hurt feelings after I done hurt myself having you. That's what we not gonna do.
So you protect others in a way, or you think about others by now you're participating in some form of self-regulation in terms of how hard you may go in spaces where you know that there's potential for high level non-progressive friction.
Just say drama.
Yeah, you get drama. You got the drama guard up. You protecting
it. I looked at a supervising professor one time. I even looked at an elected official. An elected official made a comment in a room about how a woman's job is to be at home taking care of her man's pole, not here. I looked at him and said, "Sir, you're 500 pounds. When was the last time you seen your pole? Can you even find it?" Yeesh. And the situation escalated because he wasn't ready for that. Not that day. Not that day. Like, I will tolerate a whole lot, but what you are not going to do is sit up here and disrespect me by saying something sexually perverted about your man parts to my face, because you don't like what I'm speaking for.
So the fact that that comment didn't benefit anyone, I'll let that ride. It was just something you had to get off your chest in that circumstance. I dig it. So
it's fine, Celeste, for you to have said that. It's fine.
And I'm going to ask this last question so we don't have to talk about the 500-pound man anymore, and get around the space. So Celeste, I'll begin with you. And Bob, you kind of alluded to it with some of what you said, because again, you prompted me to jump to this question. So you can prepare your remarks in response to others or however you desire. So I'll start with you, Celeste. Sometimes elite collectives can work against the greater good of the larger collective. What are your thoughts on this? And if you understand what I'm saying, those leaders that Bob was mentioning, they're the elite collective. The elite was the best term I could come up with. Not that they're better than, they're just in a more controlled pattern. So sometimes the elite collective can work against the greater good of the larger collective. What do you think about that?
Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, and a couple other of the richest people in the world, they meet on an island. I think at one point in time they met on an island once a year. And instead of the people, I think 10 people in the world have as much wealth as 3.6 billion people in the world. Instead of the 3.6 billion people possibly finding a way to get together, organize, because most of those people are their workers. We have to fight each other to survive. Those 10 people have the privilege of meeting on an island once a year, and they essentially determine how they're going to control the economy. Because when you have I think altogether they have like a few $1 trillion worth of wealth, they move $100 million or shift their companies a little bit, they have now impacted the economy for the next 3 years. Those 3.6 billion people can't organize a walkout. They need their jobs to survive. Can't organize a walkout because they need their check. They have kids to feed. If the larger collective who is poor and in all world circumstances could come together in the same way that those 10 extremely wealthy individuals do, a lot could happen. But that large collective ain't gonna organize a way to where they got to pay their workers more. They have to shift the world towards a more inclusive view. So I'm not sure if that was directly how you wanted the question answered, but that's the first thing that came to mind.
No, you stayed well on topic in my mind, and that's literally the topic of the show is cost of benefit. So the cost could be great for that billions of people to organize and to flex in the way that you're speaking. So yeah, that's the cost benefit. It's going to cost you something to do something on that scale. Lisa, sometimes the elite collective can work against the greater good of the larger collective. What are your thoughts on it?
So, oh man, I'm trying to look at so many things from both sides, right? I wasn't as good as this when I was in law school, man. Celeste, man, you really got to get together, because after that first year, you have just enough law school to be dangerous. But assessing both perspectives, right? When you are in a place, you're in a place of privilege when you have some power or authority. And a lot of times I now understand better how when people say, oh, they forgot where they came from, it has very little to do with money and resources as much as it has to do with perspective. So I had to craft an email to someone at an organization today because they were doing something for some people in the community that our organization is working with. And I tried to craft a letter to not be chastising them on their elitist perspective and their disconnection from what something means to the people in this community. That was like the hardest thing ever, because I'm not trying to alienate them, yet it's like they don't really get this, do they? So just to put some context to it, they're doing something, and I wanted to make sure that the people in the community had a headline, a notation on there that the community did this, right? So from my sociological perspective, I got just enough sociology to be dangerous too. What this will do for the community and their empowerment, that we've met for almost 12 straight months. Every single month we've talked about what we want to see, and the people we've talked about it to heard us. They listened to us and they tried to bring certain things. So I don't think the organization or that person working in that organization meant any harm, right? I just think they're disconnected from what one little snippet of naming a community or naming the level of participation that the community had and has in what we're culminating would mean for the community. So me trying to look at both of these sides and say, okay, how does this read? Okay, how do I need to advocate for the people who are literally trying to be the change they want to see? Okay, how does it look? That kind of thing. So from how your question is framed, I'm thinking more of people are just disconnected. And I don't know if it does take a lot of energy. Shoot, it took me an hour to craft an email trying to be compassionate to perspectives, when I want each sets of people to feel valued, right? But in a position of authority, in a elitist position, a powerful position, even if you're just a supervisor, right? But this isn't just a supervisor. Leaders often, they can believe their own press, number one. So not these people, but leaders can believe their own press, and they can do a lot of stupid things and make themselves look real stupid, and even sometimes know they look stupid, and then just keep on keeping on because they have the authority or the power. Now, I don't have access to a lot of money, right? But I respect the fact that I'm in a place of privilege because I can connect to some people that can move some things to help some people, right? But I have to make sure that I stay humble that it's not about me. Like I'm a tool also, right? But what is my motivation? So that takes a lot of work. That takes a lot of work, and you cannot believe your own press. So those people that are elite, those people that are privileged, Felton, you're privileged. Celeste, we talk about the privilege all the time. Of course, Bob is the super privileged, and I love him because hey, he owns it. He owns it, but he tries to share. Um, but that's a big deal, and that is something to navigate. And I mean, I'm up for it. I'm unbought and unballed, so I'm up for it, and I like challenges. So, man, thanks for that question. You always get me to thinking.
Yeah, I think the complexity, is expressed very well in that in how you answer that question. And yeah, I take it to the political realm as well. You have a hierarchy, and sometimes that elite collective that I'm speaking of, they're still all about some self-preservation. It's just it's a collected self-preservation. So yeah, it's observable. And I had to incorporate that question because it's not always just about self. There's a collective inside the collective, as Ajane and I were discussing earlier. There's a collective inside the collective. Bob, take us on up out of here. I know you probably don't need the refresher, but you alluded to it, and then the question was on the page. So thanks for jumping ahead, but you got the last word.
Yeah, but I do want to make a couple of comments. One, to the question about benefit of others rather than self. I made that decision in business, and I'm bringing that up because so often people think that there's this one way people ought to operate and operate privately, individually, family, friends, etc. And then business is its own separate thing. And for me, if you can't play your values in business, they're not your values. If you can't keep them there, you can't keep them anywhere, because if you can keep them there, you can keep them everywhere. But if you can't, you can't. So I made the decision a long, long time ago that in business, we had to operate on the basis of values and reliability, not based upon what was going to turn the greatest profit, what was going to deliver the best sales, what was going to do this or that for the time. And I think that plays to this last question, where we have the elite playing for further gain of individualism or business or opportunity or whatnot. Why are we pursuing Mars, not homelessness? Why are we worrying about the Titanic, not water quality? Why are we doing these things? We have the capacity to solve every problem this earth has, but we do not have the leadership focused on doing that. And that's a choice. And that's a choice that at the end of the day falls to the elite. So that's my answer.
I believe the through line in this conversation, especially the last question and where we're leaving off, is integrity. Integrity has a lot to do with a pursuit that has attached to it an inherent value position observant of not just oneself. And I think integrity plays a large role in this, in terms of the entrustment that we have for the leadership that doesn't seem to hold us in the highest regard in terms of what they focus on accomplishing. So yeah, great show as always, everyone. I truly appreciate the time. There's always more to talk about, more to discuss, but I'm grateful. I'm super grateful and I want that to be understood every time we get to spend some time in these squares and just share our thoughts. We need more of this, and I know it does something for me as well, Lisa. It can lift my spirits on days when I've just had like, what's the next move? Don't know for certain, et cetera, et cetera. This space does something that is very, very health related in terms of upliftment. So thank you so much for all you guys do in this space and in others. Danya, appreciate you spinning the wheels as you often do and do so well. Celeste, thanks a lot. Lisa, thank you for making it home safe, and glad to see your face back home. Bob, thanks as always. You guys have a wonderful evening, and we'll catch up